If you ever find easy running to be a challenge, whether that be physical or mental, this video is for you. So the first question is, can I run too slow? So basically, how slow is too slow that I'm risking not getting any better or building the same level of aerobic endurance that I could be if I was running faster? I would say this question typically comes from the people who haven't quite bought into the premise that easy running is the best strategy at helping them get faster. And that's okay. It really takes time to wrap your head around this concept that really seems counterintuitive. So on that note, I'm not going to talk about the science of easy running and why it's so important in this video, but I have another video all about it, so I'll make sure that I link that. I recommend that you check it out. Yeah, because you want to really know why it works. But you'll be happy to know that the short answer is no, you really cannot run too slow. So I always like to tell people, as non-elite runners, even non-sub-elite runners, it's just not something that we have to be concerned about. Pretty much any running that we do, we are going to be, in that zone 2 of running, most likely, or at least the upper end of zone 1, which is totally fine to be spending your time in that upper end of the zone 1 range. Really, as long as you are running, you're in the physical act of running, which is essentially having both feet off of the ground at the same time, you are building your aerobic endurance and you are going to get better at running. Now, the very, very fastest set of people in the world, that's not the people that I'm talking to, but everyday runners like you and me, even the people who are running, sub 3 marathons, you really just don't have to worry about that. So here's a quick example for myself. I ran with a friend for a recovery run. I think it was my first or second run back after the Houston Marathon. And we ran about 12-minute miles. So for reference, as a 3:30 marathoner, I'm running just under 8-minute miles for the marathon. And so at 12-minute miles, that's 4 minutes per mile slower than my marathon pace. And I checked what my heart rate was during that run, and it was a 115 average. And for me, my max heart rate is 186, which puts the very bottom of zone 2 for me, 60% of max heart rate, at 112 beats per minute. So even going 4 minutes slower than my marathon pace, I still hadn't gotten into zone 1. I was still running. I was still getting that aerobic benefit. Really, if I was going out and doing all my recovery runs, easy runs, at that 12-minute pace, I would be totally fine and making gains in my running. And if you're sitting here, thinking, okay, well, I'm faster than you are, what about me? So I met this runner at the gym, very, very fast, a sub 245 marathoner. And I was just picking his brain, what do you think the most important and beneficial things are that you do? And he said, number one, the most beneficial thing that I do is run 3-hour long runs at 10 minutes per mile pace. Talking about how important that long, slow distance run is. So I looked up 245 marathon is a 6:18 per mile marathon pace, running 10 minutes per mile. For him, again, that's nearly 4 minutes per mile slower than his marathon pace. So really, guys, the short answer is you really can't run too slowly. You are getting the aerobic benefits, building up that cardiovascular system that you need to be able to run longer and run faster for longer distances. So leads us into the second question, but what about walking then? Is it bad to walk? So we know you can't really go too slow with the running, but what about actually adding in those walk breaks? But the easy answer here is that there's nothing wrong with anyone taking a walk break. I don't care how strong of a runner you are, how fast of a runner you are, how slow of a runner you are. If you need to take walk breaks, you 100% should take them and not feel at all a less of a runner. And if we're talking a recovery run, like you had a really hard effort the day before, even more so, those walk breaks can be highly beneficial. And if your body's saying that you need one, then you should definitely be listening to your body and taking one. And we all know, ultra runners who are running these really long distances at these huge elevation gains, they are absolutely taking walk breaks. Even the very best ultra runners in the world are doing so just to maximize their energy for the race. So it would be stupid to say to anyone that taking walk breaks as a runner is bad. But there are a couple points here that I do think are important to address. So the first one being is if you are planning to walk, so beyond, in a recovery run where you're just listening to your body, taking that walk break when you need it, if you haven't been able to sustain a certain distance of running yet, you're kind of still in that earlier phase as a beginner, or you're making your way back to running after a long time off, I would highly recommend that you plan your walk breaks versus just basically running as hard as you can until you can, barely hang on to that you have to take a walk break. It's much better to be more calculated about it and have planned walk breaks. This may mean that you need to kind of work out the ratio for a little while, try to figure out what works best for you. Maybe that's 4 minutes of running, 1 minute of walking. Maybe it's more walking right now. Maybe it's half and half where you're doing 1 minute of running, 1 minute of walking. Whatever it ends up being for you that you need to be doing so that you can kind of extend the amount of time that you're actually out there, working aerobically, working up to how long you can run. It's unique to you and what you need right now. But essentially, every week you're going out, you're able to extend the amount of time running longer till the point that you can run the entire distance without walking if you want to. So here's another really common statement or question. Running slowly doesn't feel good to me. Are you sure that this method is for everyone? So I have people reach out and say, I don't like to run slow. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel efficient. I feel much better when I'm running fast. And yeah, when you are first making the transition to running slowly or running at an easy pace, when you've always, gone all out on all of your runs, you're used to running hard, it's going to feel weird and it's not going to feel as efficient because honestly, it's not. And a lot of times when you're making that transition, your cadence is very, very different than what it is when you're running fast. And you're maybe making these very up and down movements as you're running. And it doesn't feel good. But this does not mean that it's not going to help you, build up your aerobic endurance and be able to run these longer distances and get faster over time, just because it doesn't feel good. So really, I find this to be more of an excuse from people who don't want to run easy, or they just don't believe that 80-20 running works. They haven't really come to terms with that. In which case I would say, no one is forcing you to slow down. You don't have to follow this best practice protocol of doing around 80% easy running if you don't want to. But if you want to keep reaching your potential as a distance runner, that you want to get faster, you want to be able to run these longer distances and get faster doing them, easy running has to be a big part of your regimen because you have to build up a big base. You have to have a lot of volume of running, a lot of time on feet. And the only way to do that and build the aerobic endurance and stay injury-free in the process is by slowing down a lot. So I'm just asking you guys, if this is really important to you, if you have big running goals for yourself, is to get out there, keep trying it. It will get easier to run easy over time. It will start to feel more efficient, more comfortable. It'll become more intuitive, and it will just be part of your everyday running that you do. All right, the last one I think is the biggest one, or the one that I've really had people reach out because they're just feeling really frustrated, a lot of heartache around the process. And it's really hard for me as a coach because I can tell these are the people who are really trying to trust the process, and yet they're just really struggling with the easy running working and trying to keep their heart rate down into that zone 2 where it's supposed to be. And no matter how much they slow down their running pace, they cannot get their heart rate in zone 2. And so essentially they're being forced to take a lot of walk breaks, which maybe is just where they're at as a runner. But a lot of times it's a situation where they're trying to run. They know that they can, go out and run for an entire 10K. They've raced it. They know they're able to run that distance. However, it doesn't matter how slow they go. They cannot keep their heart rate in that zone 2. And so they come to me and they're just, yeah, really upset and frustrated with the process, hating running, which is really the opposite of what we want to have. Yes, I've talked about, like in my last video, if you have big goals for yourself, yeah, you have to do things that you don't want to do. Like maybe running easy 80% of the time, it's boring, you don't want to do it, but you're going to do it because you know that it's really important to the process of you reaching these big goals. But I'm talking about people a lot of times who are on their first marathon journey. They just want to complete the marathon first. So here are some tips for you if you are in that situation. So the first one, I like to encourage runners to look at factors beyond just your heart rate. So the first one being, pay attention to how you feel. How are you feeling on this run? Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel easy to you, even if your heart rate's saying something different? Because, first and foremost, we should be paying attention to our bodies and how we feel. And part of the problem here is a lot of times the heart rate monitor that someone is using isn't even accurate. And so that's why I think it's really important to tap into how you feel first and foremost. Second part I want you to think about is are you running at least 1 to 2 minutes slower per mile than your planned or projected marathon pace? Even if you haven't run a marathon, you can use a calculator like the Macmillan calculator and put in a shorter race distance that you've run to figure out what your projected marathon time is or marathon pace. So if you've done that, let's say you put that in and you find out that your marathon pace is 10 minutes per mile. If you're going at least 11:30 per mile in your easy runs, 12 minutes per mile in your easy run, you're in a good spot. You're not doing too much. You're not going to be hurting your body by going at that pace. You're still running in that speed limit, I like to say, pace, even though I don't like runners to focus on pace too much when we're talking about easy runs. Sometimes you just need a frame of reference, and let's just not worry about that heart rate for a while and just focus on how you feel around this pace. And if you're saying, but what about all that stuff I've heard about heart rate? What about everything I've heard about the importance of staying in zone 2? I want you guys to know that if you're a newer runner, you're going to be making a lot of gains really quickly anyway. It's not the end of the world, if you're running in zone 3 sometimes. So I think more than anything, the last tip that I want to say is this is more about consistency than anything. I preach easy running a lot because of the people who are very much like I was and going out and doing all of my runs hard all the time. And I would end up getting hurt. I would hit a plateau. I got faster for a while until I didn't. But if you're more in that beginner phase journey of your running, yes, I still want you to work on trying to, keep your RPE down to that 3 or 4. Yes, I want you to continue to work on that easy running so that you can run these long distances comfortably. That's really, really important. But I don't want you to get so hyper-focused on the heart rate that it's deterring you from even going out and doing your run at all because you're starting to hate it. That's the opposite effect of really what I want as a coach and coaching on this channel. I'm trying to get runners to build a love for running and want to be a lifelong runner. And so if that means that you need to go a little too fast sometimes to have the joy in your running while you're building this up, then I encourage you to do so. So I'll leave you with, guys, it's about progress over perfection. If you are learning and trying and getting better at the process and attempting to do what you need to do over time to put these pieces together to become a better runner, that's really what it's all about. And if you guys are finding that it's a struggle to find the balance between that easy and hard running, you think you're walking too much, you aren't sure if you should be doing walk breaks or if you should be running all the time, that's what we're here for. I have a team of coaches. You can find us at readysetmarathon.com. I will put the link below. You guys can reach out if you want to learn more. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for joining me, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.